Time and again, we hear different sorts of conspiracies, sometimes filled with paranoia, other times with specks of the truth. But before conspiracy theorists began grasping at straws, there was a man at the forefront of revealing dark truths, truths that the government wanted to keep hidden. A series of heroic acts that would ultimately lead to his demise. This man was Milton William Cooper, fondly known as Bill. Bill was no ordinary conspiracy theorist. He was a radio broadcaster as well as a prominent author, and had been described as militia theoretician of sorts. Bill rose to fame in 1991 after releasing his book Behold a Pale Horse, in which he had warned the world about multiple global conspiracies actually being true. These conspiracies ranged from the existence of aliens, fluoride, 9/11, reptilian people, HIV/AIDS, to JFK's assassination, and even secret documentations. Bill had gained himself massive attention in the biggest ufology circles, where he claimed to have seen classified Navy documents which described in detail the government's dealings with aliens, and he also claimed to have first-hand experience of extraterrestrial anomalies which have changed his life forever. Sometime after all these occurrences, he sat down in an exclusive interview where he managed to shed some light on his ordeal.
Hello, we're UFO Investigations. I'm True Hawkins, and this is Research Associate Jody Piercy.
Hello.
Our continuing job is to bring information to you from recently acquired government documents acquired through the Freedom of Information Act and information from civilian investigators. It's our continuing goal to compile and bring you information as it becomes available. Now, this first video report will serve as a rather broad overview and history of investigations starting right after World War II. Now, to begin with, do UFOs and extraterrestrial beings exist? Lear's not the only one formerly with the government intelligence community. Bill Cooper, a former Navy man, describes the incident that turned him onto UFO research during a subsequent interview with Knapp and Lear.
In the Navy, I had an occasion to actually see what they call a UFO, only this was certainly not unidentified. The only thing that I could tell about it that was unidentified is we didn't know who was flying it. I was on a submarine on the surface between Pearl Harbor and the Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington area.
What did it look like? What did you see?
It was a huge, absolutely, without a doubt, metal machine which had been built by someone somewhere, came up out of the water, tumbled end over end, and went up into the clouds. It was low cloud cover that day. There were 3 personnel on the conning tower. It was myself, the starboard lookout, and the officer of the deck. His name was Ensign Ball.
You all saw it?
They all saw it. The captain was called to the bridge. He came up, followed by the chief quartermaster, who brought a 35-millimeter camera. The craft, or another craft that looked exactly like it, came back down out of the clouds, again tumbling end over end, went into the water. And the whole thing was incredible. I was absolutely stunned. But it was obvious that it was metal, it was a machine, it did not glow like the normal accounts of...
meteors or something like that?
No. And pictures were taken. When we arrived back in port, we were debriefed by Office of Naval Intelligence officer who basically the gist of the debriefing was is you didn't see anything and you're not going to talk about anything, and if you do, you're going to be in deep trouble. So that was the end of that.
Now, both Lear and Cooper are now conducting their research in the open, exposing themselves to whatever consequences may come their way.
Bill had served in the Navy and was part of the intelligence briefing team of the Commander-in-Chief in the United States Pacific Team, which automatically gave him top secret clearance. He claims that during that period of time, he saw some sensitive documents that outlined what truly happened on the fateful day of November 22nd, 1963, when President John F. Kennedy was assassinated.
Naval Security Intelligence Officer. He says he was privy to secret documents that gave almost inconceivable explanations to some of the things I just mentioned. Bill Cooper, thanks for being with us today.
It's
Let's
nice to
talk
be here.
about the JFK assassination. CIA plot?
Well, from the top secret documents that I read while I was in Naval Intelligence, it concerned the Central Intelligence Agency, the Secret Service, Division 5 of the FBI, and the Office of Naval Intelligence, and that's why I was able to view these documents.
Now, why would the CIA and the security community want to kill the president?
From what I understand and from what I read, Bob, they viewed President Kennedy as a security threat, and I'm not sure exactly what that means. But the documentation clearly said that the assassin was the driver in the car in which he was riding in Dallas on that day, and it was plainly visible in a film withheld from the public.
Now, you brought that film with you. Let's take a look at that if we can. Here's the film. Go ahead and narrate this for us, will you?
Well, it took me 16 years to find this film because it has really been withheld, and what you're seeing here is the motorcade on Elm Street passing in front of the book depository building. Kennedy has been shot in the throat, and Jacqueline is pulling him toward her, trying to comfort him, and she's in shock. At this time, you see the driver turn around with a pistol in his left hand, firing over his right shoulder, and shoots the president directly in the head.
Here's a repeat of it, yeah.
The weapon, watch the driver, his name is William Greer. He was, in fact, a Secret Service agent. The weapon is an electrically operated, gas-powered assassination pistol built especially for the Central Intelligence Agency.
You don't see any puff of smoke from
That's correct. Because
what you think is a pistol there in the right-hand corner, lower right-hand corner.
That's correct. It is
Why is that?
Well, it's an air-operated pistol. It's pneumatic. And it actually fired an exploding pellet which injected shellfish toxin into the president's brain so that if the actual explosion of the pellet itself did not kill him, the toxin would.
Now, did you read all of this
Yes.
in the documents?
Yes, and that's why his brain was switched for another brain in transit between Parkland Hospital in Dallas and Bethesda Naval Hospital in Washington, D.C.
Now, what about Oswald?
Oswald was a patsy. We have a photograph of him actually standing in front of the book depository building in the doorway watching the motorcade as it goes by. That is Lee Harvey Oswald there. You can look at his clothing, and you can see in a following picture, I don't know if they're going to show it here, but we also have photographs of him when he was under arrest.
We don't have that, but I have seen that photograph, and they do look quite similar. The clothing is very
Absolutely.
similar.
We've also done body measurement proportion comparison analysis between the two photographs, and there's no doubt it's Lee Harvey Oswald.
This is incredible. Why isn't it that the CIA has silenced you? Why haven't they silenced you?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think they want a martyr on their hands. Martyrs create political movements. And what I did is literally within a 24-hour period, I prepared a $27,000 mailing. That's what it cost me personally to mail this information all over the world and the United States. And so they're faced with a dilemma. Do they allow me to speak and allow people to doubt what I'm saying, or do they do something overt toward me to silence me and thus verify that everything that I've said is true?
Now, what about Jackie Kennedy? She was in the car with the president right there, and we saw her later in that film trying to get out of the car.
Yeah.
Why hasn't she said something?
Well, it's obvious. You have to understand that the Secret Service was a participant in the plot to assassinate the president. She saw William Greer shoot her husband. She tried to get out of the car because she had every reason to believe that she might be left. She saw Connolly hit. She saw her husband hit. She tried to exit. Her own personal bodyguard, Clint Hill, tried to put her back in the car and succeeded. But you have to understand that her children, for the rest of their life, are guarded by the Secret Service. She is also under protection of the Secret Service. A better thing might be, say, captive.
For those unfamiliar with the term Roman Circus, this term is used to describe the superficial appeasement in order to distract or occupy people so that they become less susceptible to asking questions about troubling realities of the real world. Now, Bill, on the other hand, spoke in a documentary where he openly exposed how the Roman Circus theory has actually been quite prevalent and a common theme in today's society.
I don't care how long he works and I don't care what he does. There is no job worth $2 million a year. That's why they pay athletes these fantastic salaries. I was listening to the radio the other day. They just contracted to pay one player on one team $6 million a year. Can you believe this?
And why is that?
It's the Roman Circus. What does the emperor do when the people become restive And when the people are asking questions, and when the people don't like the policies of the emperor, he sends them to the circus. He creates a circus. He builds a giant coliseum. And he begins to throw the Christians to the lions. And he has great chariot races and football games and basketball games, all to keep the idiots preoccupied with things that don't mean anything in the scheme of the entire world.
"9/11 was an extremely tragic day in the United States of America and was allegedly orchestrated by Osama bin Laden and his extremist group Al-Qaeda. But were those parties actually responsible? You see, even though bin Laden later admitted to being the mastermind, Bull seems to believe otherwise. In a statement released in June of 2001, he warned the world of a major attack and said that bin Laden would be blamed as he was created by the CIA. But even though it seems far-fetched, let's take a listen.
Now, don't you think that's kind of strange, folks? You see, because the largest intelligence apparatus in the world, with the biggest budget in the history of the world, has been looking for Osama bin Laden for years and years and years, and can't find him. The FBI also, under the leadership of Louis Freeh, has been looking for Osama bin Laden for years and years and years and years and years and many years, and can't find him. Some doofus, jerk-off reporter with a camera crew waltzes right into his hideout and interviews him. Now, that tells us two things. Either everyone in the intelligence community and all of the intelligence agencies of the United States government are blithering idiots and incompetent fools, including the entire apparatus of the FBI and all of their personnel, or they're lying to us. They're not looking for him at all. And the second is the truth. You see, the CIA created Osama bin Laden. They recruited him. They trained him. They found his leadership. They brought them all together. They showed them how to fight the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, and when that was over, they still continued to fund him and train him, and they're now using him to help bring about world government by making him the big boogeyman, because they can't use Saddam Hussein anymore. And if you believe it, you are one of the stupidest jerks that ever lived on the face of this earth. And whatever is going to happen that they're going to blame on Osama bin Laden, don't you even believe it. When in hell are all you people going to wake up?
Bull had selflessly devoted and in fact laid down his life in hopes of exposing terrifying conspiracies such as existence of aliens to JFK's assassination and even 9/11 being an inside job, and how the CIA used Osama bin Laden as their scapegoat, all of which had no doubt cost him everything merely because he had become too influential and had essentially become a massive threat to everything the government is determined to keep hidden from the public.
The worst thing that our enemies can ever create is a martyr. Any move to hurt me in any manner whatsoever that would not be a legitimate method or a legitimate outcome of some legitimate endeavor will be met with martyrdom. Tremendously dangerous and strong, active political movements always rise up around martyrs. While I don't really want to be a martyr, if that's what history chooses for me to be, then I will be that martyr. But our enemies are not stupid. They try to come at you in a way that will demonize you in the eyes of the American public, or the public of the world, so that whatever they do will seem to be legitimate. But my knowledge of the law has stymied them in that respect, because I've challenged them on every issue and they have defaulted. And so they're betting that some local sheriff's deputy or local police officer is going to arrest me, in which case, if they attempt that, I'll have to shoot them. Or they'll have to shoot me. And that's what the federal government is counting on. Then they can really demonize me by saying I murdered some police officer who was doing something he should never have been doing in the first place and was actually the one committing the crime against me. And I know all of you are scratching your head because you've been taught so many lies all your life. You think this is absolute total bullshit, but it's the absolute, complete, and total truth.
They're not going to let me get away with doing this forever, so the day they come to put me in prison or kill me, you'll all know that for sure, because it will happen sometime in the future. I don't know exactly when, but it will. And I've known that from the beginning.